2 years ago, I installed this hardwood cladding onto the front of my workshop. Now, the wood itself is a very dense hardwood called kerosene, and its primary purpose is for articulated lorry flooring. So I thought it wouldn't have any issues coping with the northwest of England climate. Now, once I installed that, I splashed out, shall we say, on Osmo UV protection oil, because when you do treat it, it has this lovely amber colour that I wanted to preserve. Now, I won't go into all the details here, I've got videos about it, but I was less than impressed with the Osmo UV oil. Fast forward 12 months and I tried my own concoction of boiled linseed oil mixed with Terps substitute, and to be honest, the results are very similar to what I got from the Osmo UV protection oil, but at a fraction of the cost. One mistake I did make in that video was spraying the finish on. I should have applied it with a brush. It would have got a much more even distribution and better penetration into the wood fibres. So here we are, present day. It needs sorting out again. So what am I going to do? Well, this time I've decided to try a range of different finishes across different panels and test them out over the course of a year. Which ones am I going to use? Well, I'll deal with that slightly later in the video. Firstly, what I need to do is get all of this stripped back, cleaned up and ready for a new finish. Right, 6 days later and the preparation is over. I've sanded it down 3 times. I started with a carbide scraper to get the worst of the old finish off. I wiped it down with Terp sub in between and at the end, and I've tack clothed it to within an inch of its life. Now I know there will be some people watching going, ah yeah, you should have used 4-part Terp sub and mixed with 1 part unicorn milk. I've been doing this for a little while now, and I am aware that for whatever you do, for some folk it will never be enough. What I will say though is what I am doing here is kind of representative of what a lot of folk will be doing, and probably why they're watching this video, as in they've used a finish that they've maybe not been happy with and are looking for something better. So I think what I've done there in terms of stripping it back, getting the old finish off as best as I can to the best of my ability, is probably above what most people would do, so I'm happy with the preparation on this. Now to the finishes themselves. I have selected a variety, and most of this stems from conversations I've been having with my website members in my behind the scenes videos, and also I posted a thread on the Woodworkers UK forum on Facebook explaining what my plans were, and this was months ago, and asking for any feedback, any suggestions, any ideas. I couldn't accommodate every single one. I haven't got the budget for that. So let's have a look at what we've got. I do have some Osmo UV protection oil left over from the initial application on the front of the cladding. So I think it's important to use that as a kind of benchmark really to compare it against some of the other finishes. I do have some Treatex Bangkirai Oil that was recommended to me by my local timber merchants. Now that's got a slightly darker pigment to it, so it's going to give a darker effect on the actual wood. For the very first time I have purchased a Rubio product, so I've got the Rubio Monocoat Dura Grip, which is the appropriate one for external application. Very interested to try that out. The other one that was probably the most popular in terms of feedback via the Woodworkers UK forum is, I don't even know how to pronounce it. Is it Sikkens? Sikkens. It's a 2-part application, so it is the Cetol HLS Plus and the Filter 7 Plus. I have got Polyvine exterior wood varnish. So I've actually got a varnish product. I'm going to use some decking oil because I think that is something a lot of folk would consider using with the mindset, if it's good enough for decking whilst it's in the horizontal position, then certainly it's going to be enough for cladding whilst it's in the vertical position. I also use this stuff on my hot tub raised decking platform. So that is Ronseal Ultimate Protection Decking Oil, and some what we might refer to as more natural products, even though they are man-made, if that's correct. So I've got some premium Danish oil that I get from the Cornish chopping board company. Brilliant company. That's where I also get mineral oil from my own woodwax finish. And I've also got some pure Tung oil. There is one more I'm going to add to the mix. I can't see it, just over here. I'm going to go and get it. A friend of mine who is a fellow one-handed woodworker over in the US, over in Florida, has always gone on to me about using watered down Titebond 3. So I'm going to dedicate one length of the cladding to Matt over in the US there, and I'm going to try that out as well. So watered down PVA, or particularly Titebond 3, which has waterproof qualities. Now let me just take you outside to explain how I'm going to go about setting all this up, and then I'll bring you back in here before we get started. In total, there are 19 layers of cladding. Each layer is split into 3 sections to accommodate the drawbridge, and the total length of each layer in old money is 24 foot, in new money is around 7.3 meters. So the plan is this: the bottom layer is going to get the watered down Titebond 3 PVA, and the remaining 9 finishes are each going to get 2 sections, 2 layers of cladding. One final thing before I start, I'm going to give it one last wipe down with a tack cloth before I apply any finish. Despite the fact it's been tack cloth to within an inch of its life, I want to do my best for this experiment because it'd be interesting to see how it progresses, and also I think it will be a little bit interesting for some of you guys watching as well, and maybe this fella down here as well. Oh, hello. Right, okay, let's get set up back in the workshop and then let's get ourselves out here and going. Hello. Right, back in here just to deal with a couple of pointers and variables before starting what hopefully should be the nice part of the experiment, as opposed to that 6 days prep work I've just been doing. Each application is going to have its own brush to avoid any possible cross-contamination. All of these finishes that I've chosen, even though some of them might have a stain element to it, is to retain the natural features of the wood. The Kerowin cladding itself is really nice stuff. It's a very dense hardwood. It's quite sappy, but it's been out for over 2 years now. So I think all the sap that has been within that wood has been drawn out, which should give a better prospect, I think, to the experiment. One question that does crop up that I see about treating cladding is paint it, you know, just paint it. And personally, I don't see the logic. If you are going to paint it, I don't see the logic in using hardwood cladding. I just think it's be an expensive waste of money. If you want that kind of finish, if you like, you're better just using some kind of synthetic material, UPVC or some kind of composite or something, because if you're just going to paint wood, it will lose all of its appealing features. You know, if you're just going to paint it black, or you know, just going to paint over it white or something, all of these I'm hoping will retain the character of the Kerowin. Some of it might stain it a bit darker or stain it a slightly different colour, but you're still getting the grain patterns and stuff coming through. That's why I'm using these, and I'm not adding a paint variant to the experiment. Hope that makes sense. The other thing I'm hoping for is the weather. It's going to be pleasant today, and hopefully, you know, the rain will hold off, but I'll have to check the forecast as I'm going along. The actual finishes themselves will be applied via manufacturer's guidelines, with the exception of the likes of the Tung oil and the Danish oil, which I'm just going to give 2 coats, letting it dry and soak in between, and hit it with another coat. Hope that makes sense. I don't know if you'll be tapping away the questions in the comments section at this point, but I'm going to crack on with this now. It's going to take me a little while to do, and then we will have a little look at the finished lengths at the end, and then we will let Mother Nature take its course and leave it for however long. All right, let's get on with it. And that nearly brings us to the end of part 1 of this experiment. All of the finishes have been applied as per manufacturer's guidelines, and there's just a few points I'd like to address before we wrap things up, and I've even made some notes, which is very rare for me because I don't want to miss anything out. Firstly, number 1, how it looks. When I was thinking about setting this experiment up, one thing I was worried about was destroying the look of the front of my workshop, but look at it. I think it looks really smart. I think if Tracy Emin can win the Turner Prize for an unmade bed, I should at least be making the shortlist for the front of this. I really like the contrast in colour tones, particularly the darker ones in the middle fading lighter. That wasn't a purposeful choice in terms of colour tone. I'll come back to that later, but I think it looks smart. More than happy to leave this for as long as it takes to conclude this experiment. Second point, I had a miscalculation of how many boards I have. So each of the finishes have got 2 panels, including the watered down Titebond 3 here, which means there is an empty panel on the bottom, or a panel that's not had a finish. And that's over to you for this one, because we could just leave that and see how it weathers with no finish on. Alternatively, I did dip back into my questions from my website members, and someone brought up this stuff called Owatrol D1 and D2, and I managed to get a couple of sample pots of that. Now, I could apply that to the bottom as per, you know, manufacturers, and add that to the experiment if you'd like, or I could leave it blank. Let me know what you think in the comments, and you know, the majority wins in that respect. And that brings me to the bottom panel as well, because one of my website members, Daffith, my friend, the Deaf Maker, did point out, he said the bottom panels would be getting more water due to like splashback off the concrete, and the top panels would be getting more sun. So how was I thinking of that? Again, initially when I was setting up this experiment, I was going to split the panels. Just to give you an example, say for example, the top 2 panels here are Danish oil. So I was thinking of doing panel 1 and panel 9 Danish oil, panel 2, panel 10 Tung oil. But it was starting to overcomplicate things in my mind. In a rather complicated experiment as it is, when you're following all the different guidelines, doing your absolute best to try and get it right. So I kept the same finish together on the 2 panels next to each other. What I did do though, is the finishes I thought people would have most interest in, which is the Osmo UV Oil, the Rubio Dura Grit, the Sikkens Cetol, and the Treatex. I've grouped them in the middle. So they are getting the same, really, in terms of sunshine, rainfall, wind, all the elements of the northwest of England. So although it's interesting to test all the others, you know, the Danish oil, the Tung oil, the watered down Titebond 3, the Ronseal, the Polyvine, but I thought these 4 is probably what the people will be viewers will be most interested in, so they're grouped in the middle. So thanks for pointing that out, Daffith, and it's something I did, you know, I was thinking about. Rubio, I'm going to come back to that in a minute before we wrap things up, because there's a couple of points to make about that. Applying the finishes, that was it, because it was, again, it's not something I thought of in terms of a part of the experiment, but what would he generally like to apply? Well, the top 2, Danish oil and Tung oil, you know, just applying them thinly. They were fine going on, including the Osmo UV oil, kind of an oil-based thing. With the top 2, with the Danish oil and the Tung oil, I kind of went through it, 2 coats for that, and then checked after 20 minutes if there was any excess. I just wiped that off with a lint-free cloth. Osmo went on fine, again, applying it by the instructions. Then we get to I'll come back to Rubio, as I say, at the end. Sikkens went on really nice. You can tell that's a premium quality product. Putting on the stain first, and then it was 2 coats of the filter, the top coat on that. Treatex is really thin. It's almost watery, so you've got to be dead careful putting that on. It was fine to put on, but you just don't want to overload your brush, because you end up with drips going everywhere. So that went on fine. Polyvine, which is the varnish, as you can see here, all it's done, it's not kind of brought out the grain, it's not you know, brought out the natural colour of the wood. It's just covered over, as it is a varnish, what was actually there. So it's just providing a protective layer. So if you're looking really to kind of pop the grain back out of something, maybe Polyvine's not there, because, as I say, it looks smart, like, but all it's done is literally, where it had greyed over the last couple of years, it's retained that. It's not gone back to the original wood colouring. The Ronseal Ultimate Decking Oil went on really nice, just soaked in. Dead easy to apply as well, so that was something maybe to bear in mind. The watered down Titebond 3 went applied like watered down PVA. What can I say? So interesting on that one. Now the Rubio one I want to come back to, because I've been promoting this on my social media via Instagram, Facebook, and etc. And Rubio messaged me actually saying, looks like a great experiment. And then they asked me this question, did you use the exterior wood cleaner before applying? Which is Rubio exterior wood cleaner. And I replied saying no, because you know, as I went through, as you've seen in the video, so I used 60 grit and 80 grit, wiped down with Terp sub in between, tack cloth at the end. And they said, we recommend, you know, I explained the situation. They said they recommend that you use the exterior wood cleaner to get the best finishes, the best results, which puzzled me a little bit, because I was confident, as I've said throughout the video, I'd followed manufacturer's instructions. So I went to the Rubio tin this morning before filming this bit, and it says on the tin, in case of renovations on older non-Rubio products, remove all residues of old applications, yep. Clean the surface with exterior wood cleaner, yep. Let it dry, apply Duragrit, let it dry for 3 hours. It didn't say the exterior wood cleaner was a Rubio product. It doesn't say clean the surface with Rubio exterior wood cleaner. Exterior wood cleaner to me can mean anything, you know, like, which is your go-to one. So I was a bit disappointed in the wording of that, because has this been, the Rubio finish been compromised now because I've not followed their interpretation of the instructions, or I have interpreted the instructions incorrectly? What Rubio have said they're going to do is they're going to send me out a sample of the wood cleaner. I do have a piece of this paneling left. I think it was, you know, about the size of the drawbridge door. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sand that back, use the wood cleaner, and then apply the Rubio on it, and put it to the side somewhere, so it can become, it's not part of the experiment really, because it's only a little sample size as opposed to 2 whole panels. But that's something you need to be mindful of yourselves, that if you are going to use the Rubio, then it needs to be the Rubio related product, which isn't necessarily clear on the instructions, and that's maybe something Rubio need to address. And maybe that reflected in my application of it, because I found it a little bit difficult to apply. It did look a little bit patchy, and I had to go back to it, even though this is a one coat product. But the actual tone of it, the colouring of itself looks great, and let's see how it performs along with the rest of them, which brings me to the conclusion of part 1 of this experiment. What would you like to happen now, and how do you think this is going to go? Right, this really is just as much an experiment for you as it is for me. So what would you like to see from this in terms of updates? I'm going to provide regular updates via my social media, via Instagram, via Facebook as well, but I am aware there's a lot of people who watch YouTube stuff who don't have that kind of social media. I don't think I could warrant doing monthly updates on the YouTube channel. I could do on shorts. I could just literally go through it, you know, and up to a minute. And obviously there's the comment section in here. I think maybe an update in 3 months' time, 6 months' time, and a year. That's something I've got in the back of my mind. Let me know what you think in the comment section. Please get in touch via all my contact details, which are in the description, and let me know how you would like this to progress, and if I can incorporate that into my YouTube channel, then I'm happy to do so. And the final question is, we've just got to sit back now and see what happens. What do you think's going to happen? How do you think the finishes will compare to each other? Do you have experience of using these before? Which one do you think will come out on top? I'll be really interested to hear your thoughts about it, because in regards to me doing my research for this, I haven't found a lot of content on the likes of YouTube directly comparing these finishes literally right next to each other, that have been prepped in the same way, that have been applied following, you know, manufacturers' guidelines and stuff. In relation to the location of it, this is a south-facing garden, and this wall is facing west, so it does get the sun for most of the day when we do have the sun. Climatic conditions, it's the northwest of England, we get the best and worst of everything. It's quite a rainy climate here. When we do get the sun, it can be nice. I am not far from the coast. I am 3/4 of a mile from the coast, so that's also a factor to consider. Just let me know how you think it'll go, because I'm really interested. I'm excited to see how this is going to develop. I'm just going to sit back, relax, watch, and get my application off for the Turner Prize as well. Okay folks, as ever, you take care, look after yourselves, and I'll see you soon. Thanks for watching.